really trying to keep this slit. The slit in this dress is really aggressive. And
I felt with that dress at the event, the orange and white one. It was really cute, but I was like, oh man, I'm going to show the girls.
no, I know. And it's like, I keep trying to pull it to be on the side. So it's not like on the front of my leg. Cause it's a below the knee length dress, but the slit is like, I don't know, 6 inches below my cooch. And so I just really have to be careful with it because I love the dress. It's very comfortable. It's very stretchy. Is
this a new dress?
No, I've owned it for so long and I've just been afraid to wear it because of the slit.
Oh.
I've owned it for like a year. I've worn it twice.
I was like, maybe this is part of a shopping problem that.
Oh, no, I still definitely for sure have a shopping problem.
I feel like we might need an intervention, but I don't want the intervention.
I think it's become one of those things where like, because we are filming so much,
Oh yeah,
we've had events, we've had travel, we've had all this stuff. And I'm female. I like new clothes. I like new outfits for events. I like new outfits for vacations. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to wear the same shirts every time I film a reel. And so I'm justifying, and that's fair. It's like that reel that I sent Liz this one time, and it was this guy, and it's your friend, you and your friend justifying a purchase, and it's hilarious. He's like, I don't know if I need this shirt, and he's like, I mean, let's define need. You know, we need to wear clothes because if you don't wear clothes, it's a felony, and so you would go to jail. And it's just this back and forth that is hilarious.
There's one that I sent Becca too, because I like nice things and like I'm totally fine doing like Target or Amazon clothes, but like sometimes you want that really nice piece of clothing. Like I don't want to be cheap, right? And so there was a reel that was justifying like the $120 jacket or something. It might have been more, but the person's like, okay, well, let's think about how many times you would wear it. And if you wore it 4 times every month, then the cost of that is going to be like $20. And then if you wear it extra, okay, it's like Starbucks, you know? So he's like justifying it. I was like, exactly. See, I like this. But yeah, I mean, I think also for me right now, for sure, it's like, okay, done having kids, back into like pre-pregnancy weight area. Okay, I'm working on it. Yeah, you just want to, I do feel good, but I'm also like, I feel really not muscular right now. So that's the problem. We're going to work on that. Ordering more peptides, like you said, shopping for peptides, like I'm shopping for Amazon.
Yesterday, I went to TJ Maxx because we got Nick a birthday present. And I had been eyeing this corduroy puffer vest on Instagram. I keep getting ads for it. And we were in TJ Maxx and I saw something that looked exactly like it. And TJ Maxx, it's like $20. And so I grabbed it and Carson goes, Mom, you are not buying more clothes right now. And I was like, excuse me, child. You do not pay for me. Okay. I pay for me. It's like scolding him in TJ Maxx.
I feel like your husband has trained him to be his like.
And my husband will deny that until the cows come home. But he is so my husband, and he hears my husband, and he replicates. And yes, it is my mini husband that I deal with.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we got to stay on topic today because I know that your time is valuable as well as ours. So we're going to talk about chronic pain today. And this is something that I was sharing with Becca a few weeks ago. I think so many people deal with this and don't realize it. And then understanding like, where is it coming from? What are things that we can do that is not just taking NSAIDs and Tylenol and things that destroy your guts and deplete you of things. All right, if you're dealing with water retention, you're waking up puffy, your ankles or your wrists are really swollen, or you can't get your rings off, and maybe you're even dragging throughout the day, no matter how much water you drink, there's actually a good chance that you're not actually hydrating properly.
Exactly, because water alone is not enough. You need electrolytes, you need sodium, potassium, magnesium, because those things actually pull water into your cells. Otherwise, you're basically just flushing it out and wondering why you're still tired, you're still bloated, and you're still sluggish.
But here's the thing, most electrolyte supplements out there aren't helping you in any way because a lot of them contain things like natural flavors, food dyes, and maltodextrin, which can irritate your gut. And these things can also spike your blood sugar when you're trying to heal.
That's why we both started using Buoy. It's super simple, just trace minerals and electrolytes in liquid form. No flavors, no colors, no sugar, no sweeteners, and you squeeze it into whatever you are drinking. Water, coffee, tea, smoothies, you name it.
And it's clinically backed by science too. So studies have shown that Buoy helps you hydrate better, 64% better in fact, and that's data coming from key blood and urinary markers, not just marketing fluff. And honestly, you can feel the difference. I've had many clients tell me their digestion's improved, they have less headaches, and they're better energy throughout the day.
And Buoy isn't just for people that go to the gym all the time and sweat a bunch. They actually offer a 35% lifetime discount for anyone that's struggling with chronic illnesses. Things like POTS, Hashimoto's, Crohn's disease, chronic migraines, and every autoimmune condition. They're really committed to making better hydration accessible to people who need it most.
I actually throw it in my coffee every morning because it's such an easy upgrade. You don't even taste it, but you're definitely gonna notice if you miss it.
If you're tired of playing hydration roulette and want something that actually supports your body, you've got to try Buoy. It's honestly one of the simplest ways to feel better faster.
First, I wanted to just share and credit to Dr. Jockers some of the stats that are really alarming here. So more than 30% of Americans are living with some form of chronic severe pain. When we look at the chronic pain, it's impacting 116 million people compared to heart disease that impacts 25.4, cancer impacting 14.7, and diabetes impacting 30.3 million. So substantial difference. More people live with chronic pain than all three of those combined. And when we think about chronic pain, obviously it impacts your quality of life. Like everything I do is about quality of life. Like I feel talking with some of my clients, sometimes we'll get blood work back that's like atrocious, but they don't have a lot of these symptoms. And it's explaining to them, okay, why we need to do something about this so that it doesn't turn into something. But more importantly, sometimes when we get things back that are a little bit off and it doesn't make sense for the person, it's like, it doesn't matter. We're going to address the symptoms. We're going to address this, to help you improve, because that's really what this is all about, healing so that you have good quality of life and we can get these symptoms at bay, because then you can show up for your life. You can do the things you want. You can travel, you can, enjoy your life and not feel like you have to be isolated, because many people do isolate themselves. I was actually shocked. I didn't know this about one of my clients, Kristen, at the event. She did a testimonial. I haven't seen it yet. I'm really excited to see it. I saw a clip version, but she was sharing with me that she talked about how she was leaving Christmas parties, or she was skipping Christmas parties or things because like she has no ileocecal valve. So she's going to the bathroom like all the time, getting horrible stomach pains and cramps, and couldn't like tolerate food and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, I knew things were bad, but like I didn't realize from that standpoint that like she couldn't be a mom, she couldn't go play with her kids, she couldn't go live her life with her husband. I was just like, oh my gosh, it just makes us more energized to the work that we do. But with this chronic pain, 77% report feeling depressed, 70% report struggle to concentrate, probably because your mental energy and everything's going to that pain. 74% have low energy levels, and 86% don't sleep well. So first, let's define what is chronic pain. Pain signals that, there's something off with your body, causes an uncomfortable, unpleasant feeling that something needs to be addressed, right? There's an underlying issue. Pain is really essentially, it's a protective mechanism. Think about like when you get hurt, you're going to have pain. As you're recovering, it goes away. So this is kind of a signal to you, and all symptoms are. And I think if you, walk around with a broken foot without having pain, it would just get worse and worse and worse. It would never really heal, right? And so thinking about it that way, and then we can also think about acute and chronic. And so acute is, like I said, you've, had an injury, it's hurting, and then it's getting better. You've had a surgery, it's hurting, it's getting better. Chronic is something that is, ongoing. It's lasting longer than 6 months. It's present daily. Maybe it will come and go, but it's often, in flares, and it's pretty consistent. So that's one thing that we wanted to, share here. But what are the things that kind of differentiate chronic pain?
Yeah. So the acute pain and chronic pain, like Liz was saying, acute pain, there's a period of time that things should get better. Like there's a, depending on what it is, surgery, sprained ankle, like we know what acute pain typically is driven by. Sometimes the chronic pain can stem from acute pain. It can stem from like something that never healed properly, and now you have chronic pain, right? But basically chronic pain is when it goes beyond that period of what healing realistically should be. Pain no longer serves the useful purpose, because pain and inflammation is purposeful. It's a healing mechanism in the body, right? It brings more blood flow. It brings more nutrients. It brings more water. So a lot of times there's swelling. But also with chronic pain, there's changes in pain signaling and detection, and it starts to degrade health and function overall. And so there are different forms and symptoms: headaches and migraines, muscle tension and pain, joint pain, arthritis, back pain is very common, pelvic or bladder pain, nerve pain, which is awful. I never wish nerve pain on anyone. Fibromyalgia is kind of grouped into this. And then cancer related pain. So chronic pain can cause feelings of soreness, stiffness, throbbing, shooting, burning, stinging, dull ache, and overall just like a mixed type of pains, right? And it can cause those low energy, the changes in appetite, the limited ability to move your body, fatigue, poor sleep, and overall well-being, which is, I know me, I've dealt with multiple surgeries. I've dealt with long-term pain. I've dealt with long-term recoveries. It's awful. Like it completely ruins your quality of life. It's all consuming. Waking up with pain every day is just in no way, shape, a way to live. And so what we want to talk about is ultimately kind of with this, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, we're going to kind of pair them together because I think that they all can have similar underlying patterns. And that's what we're ultimately going to go through today is also, what is this root cause or mechanism? Because you may have one of these, you may have many of these, right? Because it typically starts as one thing and then it spreads into other things.
And I think a lot of these can overact or overlap with each other, excuse me. So we're going to talk about oxidative stress or reactive oxidative species, heavy metals, environmental toxins, mold, mycotoxins, biotoxins, other infections, things like parasites, microbiome, dysbiosis, think SIBO here, candida, parasites, all those types of things. Poor methylation. So this is going to come down to our detox pathways, our genetics, and then we're also going to talk about just the neuroimmune and centralization of this. So first, when we think about oxidative stress, what is this? We've talked about this as kind of like internal rusting of the body, but studies show that some fibromyalgia patients have increased markers of lipid peroxidation, protein, carbons, nitric oxide, and lower antioxidant defenses. And so when we look at this, what is the mechanism of action that's happening in the body? We know that reactive oxidative species impair a mitochondrial production of ATP, the energy powerhouse. Think about turning the lights on so that you can have good energy. And when that is depleted, we are fatigued. So this also, reactive oxidative species also sensitize pain pathways, both peripheral and central. So that increases pain perception. It can also do damage to muscle, tissue, nerves. And this can be increased by heavy metals, infections, mold toxins that we'll talk about. Low methylation also impairs our antioxidant synthesis. Antioxidants are what we need to clean up this oxidative stress, reactive oxidative species. Now, I want to add in here, genetics play a huge role. Nutrient depletions play a huge role. So when we think about mitochondrial function, I just wrote a post about this, thinking about some key players like CoQ10, urolithin A, perylacid, a variety of nutrients, creatine even, ketones, exogenous ketones can be great. But thinking about this comes down to inflammation in the body, right? And when people are chronically inflamed, that can lead to the immune system doing what's called molecular mimicry. And this ultimately turns on the attack on joints. So this is where I make that connection in my mind to rheumatoid arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis-like symptoms. Okay, so just because you don't have a positive antibody or you're going to a rheumatologist and things are coming back negative, that's actually good because you're not there yet, but it doesn't mean that activity is not still happening because it's attacking the joints, right? Again, that's going to be different than if you're doing like a really intense workout or you broke your arm and then you're having some lingering pain after the healing process. This is going to be like total systemic, kind of like that joint pain. And so you're not thinking that this is just the only root cause and that dumping a bunch of antioxidants into your body is going to be the answer. You have to address everything to calm down that inflammatory fire. Yes, you want to clean things up, but that all comes back to looking at some of those inflammatory markers on your blood work, looking at your methylation, your detox pathways. Are you hydrated? Do you have proper electrolytes? Do you have different nutrients that are, low or you're deficient in that you need to support? Because all those things matter in terms of cleaning up this oxidative stress. All those things also matter in terms of being able to build proper levels of melatonin and glutathione that are your master antioxidants in the body to also clean up the reactive oxidative species.
Yeah. So when we have this situation, just understand like the cells become basically closed off. When we get this high amount of oxidative stress, the cells get damaged. Like it's a threat to the cell. And when that happens, cells that are in danger release and activate that immune response. And then macrophages and neutrophils come in, they release and produce more cytokines because it's an immune response. And then overall, we get swelling, which sometimes you don't feel because it's systemic. Like it's not like an injury, like an ankle sprain. It's internal. So you don't feel that swelling. You just maybe feel tired, puffy, overall, like your rings start fitting tight, right? Those types of things. But then we also get a sensitization of pain fibers by these prostaglandins, by these TNF alpha pathways, and the chronic pain if the cycle persists. So it's like this, your alarm's going off internally because the cells are not healthy, and it increases pain sensitization, but then it creates more pain. And so we have to stop that cycle. So the reactive oxygen species and this oxidative stress is a huge piece. Heavy metals are the next one, and environmental toxins. So there is a correlation study showing elevated heavy metals, think aluminum, arsenic, lead, in chronic pain and fibromyalgia patients, and association with severity. So other environmental factors, pollution, xenobiotics, are also proposed in recent reviews, and metal hypersensitivity, which is basically a delayed immune reaction, has also been linked. So metals can disrupt also the mitochondrial enzymes, produce reactive oxygen species, deplete essential trace minerals, specifically magnesium and zinc, which are needed for energy, for antioxidants, for methylation. So this metal load can trigger or amplify pain and fatigue, and it often coexists. We know heavy metals are often there with mold, with parasites, with gut issues, because the detox capacity and methylation status determine how well metals are handled. So at the end of I would say that we talked about this earlier this week with one of our mentors, how fibromyalgia patients, there are always detox issues with these people. And the detox issues is typically where it starts. And then it starts to accumulate the stress on the immune system. And then the immune system starts to drive this chronic pain. And then it turns into this like basically perfect storm. And it's really hard to calm down when it gets really far. But it almost always starts with a lot of people genetically can have detoxification issues. They don't produce antioxidants. They don't produce glutathione. They struggle to clear things. And then it basically cascades.
Yeah. And I think the world that we live in right now with all the environmental toxins, people not realizing. So mold and mycotoxins is a big one, but really people don't recognize that some of these biotoxins or mycotoxins are odorless and colorless. So you're not necessarily going to see that. So people, when they think mold, they're like, well, no, I don't have mold growing in my shower or in my windowsills, or I haven't had water damage where I'm seeing like the furry molds, that's not necessarily what you're looking at. Like I have a client right now, she has gotten super sick since going back to school. And thankfully her doctor is very much supportive of Western medicine, Eastern medicine, because I'm giving her certain things and tests that we can do, but she's also going to, rheumatologists and allergists now to try to help figure out what is going on, because it's something in the school. It's an environmental thing there. So whether it's, mold, or it's some sort of the chemical that they're using in the school, something in her classroom is really triggering her. And again, to other people, maybe their genetic pathways aren't impaired the way hers are, right? Or their immune system's not overactive the way hers is. There's just a lot of factors that we have to consider. And so all of this matters when we're looking at chronic pain. It's not just slap a omega-6 or something like that. A lot of people are like, I'll just take omegas, SPM actives, Metagenics has some great ones. Caprex, really awesome. A lot of these things can be helpful, but those are still, things that are just going to be kind of masking the problem and banding it. So with mold and mycotoxins specifically, very similar to what Becca just talked about, it's immune system overactivation, right? Driving that chronic inflammation in the body. It's poor detox pathways. You can't sequester them, get them out. So we need to put binders and glutathione, think about where this is coming from, remove ourselves from that environment. Then we think about other infections. So again, gut infections, parasites, all of this, gut on fire, brain on fire. Things get out into the bloodstream. It circulates in the body. It can attack, other parts of your body, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, across the blood-brain barrier, all of those things. When we have a lot of GI infections or insufficiencies, so this is where it could be insufficient stomach acid, insufficient bile production, insufficient pancreatic enzyme production, this can lead to malabsorption. It's one thing to ingest food. It's another thing to digest food. So that's another big one. Just did a reel this morning. You guys have probably already seen it, but I talked about 14 different markers that we look at on blood work for low stomach acid, right? Doctors can see this. We can see this. Very simple on your complete blood count, MCH, MCHC. We think about potassium, or we think about alkaline phosphatase, calcium, magnesium. There's a lot of different things that can point us to this direction that, hey, she's got insufficient stomach acid. We need to support her there so that she's not seeing such malabsorption levels. When we think about those things also crossing the blood-brain barrier, there's something called lipopolysaccharides. So this is something to do with gram-negative bacteria. Just got a message today. What do you do with C. diff, right? Infections. Well, C. diff is gram-negative, and when it gets out of the bloodstream, these little antennas that are in this gram-negative bacteria, they are called the lipopolysaccharides. They go and they circulate the body, and then your liver has to, handle them as well. And the liver says, oh shit, this isn't good for me. This is like a stealth infection, right? I need to create inflammation. Now we're dealing with elevated liver enzymes. We're dealing with less bile production, which is very important for sequestering the toxins and removing them from the body. A lot of things that bile does, right? Bile is so, so important. Your liver also does more than 600 functions in the body. And so people just like walk around having a burdened liver, but people think, oh, well, like I was talking with a GI doctor and I thought this was just crazy. He's like, oh, we don't believe in supporting the liver. And it's like, but when a person is sick and they're dealing with a lot of this stuff, why not help the liver out? Why not give the liver some nutrients it needs, support bile flow, support binding some of these toxins up to remove them so they're not dealing with this chronic pain. A lot of times when you're doing gut work, you can see die-off reactions that can show up in joint pain, headaches, fatigue, brain fog, can't think clearly. That's because your detox pathways are kind of shut down, and you need to support them during this process of killing things off to rebalance the gut microbiome. And that we do in our practice because we really believe that we want people to have what they need to feel good throughout the process. And we also know, based upon blood work and certain markers, right, like GGT, a liver enzyme, ALT, AST, their lipid profile. We also look at bilirubin, right? There's a ton of markers that we're looking at to say, hey, this person is not detoxifying properly, even outside of, they poop every day. But most of the people we work with have bowel issues, right? They're not pooping every day, or they're pooping too much. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't keep anything down. I'm running to the bathroom. Well, that malabsorption is just as bad because your body doesn't have the nutrients that it needs either. And so this all kind of ties together, but I want to end it with kind of also looking at some of the neuroimmune things when it comes to just our spinal cord and how the brain processes some of this pain and those opioid receptors.
Yeah, because this is where it starts to get really tricky because it's when we see this chronic pain, fibromyalgia, it's strongly associated with changes, like actual changes in pain processing in the body. So it's no longer even the assault to the pain receptors. Your body starts changing how it experiences things. And it's in the brain, it's in the spinal cord, which is called central sensitization. There's also neuroendocrine factors like altered cortisol and stress response start to happen. So once pain pathways are sensitized, even small inputs are basically turned up in the brain. And we know this when you start to have really low cortisol levels, like you're completely burned out, quote unquote, like stage 4 adrenal fatigue, you're more sensitive to pain because cortisol should buffer that. Cortisol should help you be more tolerant to stressors on the system. And when you don't have that, you start to experience it at a higher level. And so then fatigue and brain fog can follow, sleep disturbances. You have a lower threshold for pain, inflammation from immune triggers feeds into this. And so the central sensitization can become very self-sustaining. So if the peripheral inputs keep feeding in those toxins, the potential infections, that reactive oxygen species, sleep then worsens, detox worsens, and the immune regulation worsens. And so we also can see a lot of times this from like psychological trauma, stress that potentially happens earlier in life. We see often reported in chronic pain patients. So fibromyalgia patients often have this as well. So there's early life stressors or trauma. Chronic stress is often reported. That starts to alter your HP axis. And we know this. I mean, like neuroplasticity, guys, your brain can basically change how it functions because of an environment that it's in. And for example, the example I love giving, which is a crazy, crazy story, but they did, it wasn't like a research study, but they had found this man that he locked himself essentially accidentally into a train compartment. And he was nervous because it was cold in the train compartment. And so he started to hyperventilate because he thought he was going to freeze to death because the thermostat in the train compartment said that it was below freezing. And so what they did is they found him overnight, but essentially overnight, as he was slowly dying, he was writing like, I'm so cold, I'm not going to survive, I'm going to die ultimately. And he did. But when they found him the next morning, what they also found was that the thermostat was incorrect. The thermostat was broken. It was only about 57 degrees in there, I believe. And so by no means was it below freezing, but he convinced himself that he was so cold and he had a physical reaction in his body from that, which is insane and just shows you the power of the mind on the physical, right? And so what we see is that you start to alter the way that your systems work, the messaging systems, the receptor systems, by your psychological. And so it's unfortunate because in these situations, a lot of times people just expect the pain, right? It's been so chronic for so long that every little thing starts to, and I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm not discounting anyone, but there starts to become a very mental aspect to the chronic pain. So, at the end of the day, the mitochondria become damaged. You start to lead to chronic inflammation and overactivation of the immune system. The detox systems get very overburdened, and the gut typically becomes a huge problem or was a problem in the beginning and stemmed further into the problems. And so I think testing is huge here, figuring out ultimately what is going on. Is it gut related? Are there toxins, mycotoxins at play? Is it an environmental thing? Is there past trauma? Is there chronic stress, right? What all is going on? And removing inflammatory triggers as much as we can, potentially, going in through a gut protocol to calm down the immune system within the gut. And then we look to the mental, emotional aspect. And a lot of these cases, there needs to be overrides happening. And by overrides, I mean very strong chemical signals via peptide use, via medication use. This is where things like LDN can be helpful. This is where things, like VIP peptide or SS31 peptides or FOXO4 is a new peptide that we've been, implementing in some cases that clear unhealthy senescent cells that have accumulated because of all of this chronic irritation to the immune system. So there's a lot of options, but I think the number one thing is you have to evaluate, like, where is this all stemming from?
Exactly. So if you're listening to this and you're like, great, what do I do? How do I evaluate that? I mean, first and foremost, links are in the show notes. This is what we do. I mean, day in and day out, working with women one-on-one to get to the root causes, because it's never just one thing. And then I think in the meantime, like, evaluate your environment and really think about, what is the load that you are placing on your body? Are you eating a lot of processed junk foods, a lot of processed sugars, artificial, sweeteners and fibers and things like that, fried foods, right? What are you putting on your skin and your hair care, like your perfume, your makeup, your skincare, the things, your body wash, your shampoo, conditioner, all those things matter, your laundry wash, like all of that stuff. And we have guides for non-toxic living to make it easy for you to, where to start. A lot of that is step number one, including, and maybe this should be step number one, is pollution. Solution to pollution is dilution. Water, water, water. Make sure that you're getting adequate hydration and electrolytes, flush these toxins out. But then evaluate, that dietary and environmental picture, and then put in some supports that can be really helpful here. So I already mentioned a few of them. Things like PEA, that can be helpful for pain. Caprex can be very helpful for pain. When we think about omegas, right? High dose omegas or SPMs. If you do have histamine issues, I would go the SPM route, the specific pro-resolving modulators more than the omegas. But then you can also look to support your mitochondria. I really like urolithin A in a product called Renewal. I like K-Pax, Mitonutrients. It's got everything in there, including CoQ10, carnitine, resveratrol, all these other things. Nutrient support, so various like B vitamins, methylation support, depending upon genetics. You think about magnesium, zinc, a lot of these things that really get depleted in our body. Vitamin C, iodine. Iodine is huge too, right? And then just really focusing on optimizing your detox pathways. So you could do castor oil packs, make sure that you're pooping every day, do dry brushing or the big six lymphatic massage, take binders like activated charcoal, or, I like biotoxin binder. We use a lot of different types of binders depending upon what the person is dealing with, right? If they got a lot of heavy metals, we're going more HMET, binders, or mold mycotoxins, more carboxy. Like, it really depends upon what's going on with you. So if you're wanting to get to the root cause of that, you're tired of living in pain, you know that there's a better way than just taking painkillers or steroids or whatever, just check the links in the show notes. You can always schedule a call with our team and discuss our program and how we can help you. So with that, have a great day, and don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share the show.